Hey guys, I'm Chris,
And Mike,
and welcome back to this week's No Limits to Thriller podcast. What's new this week, Mike?
I am ridiculously high on this book we're about to cover. And I'm curious, Chris, your thoughts, but I gave this one a 50 out of 50 when I was flying solo. Do I have to walk that back tonight?
I don't know, man. I don't know. It's a good book.
It's close.
I don't think I'm gonna be joining you on that 50 train, but it's a good book.
It's close, man. I think when I did it, I was riding so high from the final action sequence. It was one of those so much overwhelms you when you have one of the most enjoyable reading experiences of your entire life, rushing to the end of a book. Probably like that feeling of reading Memorial Day the first time by Vince Flynn. I think I had that here. And
Mm,
even rereading it when I know the outcome, it's
right.
still just as gripping. The writing is just as thrilling. But man, I envy that you got to read this for the first time.
Yeah, and I told you on the last pod that as soon as I finished the first book, I wanted to know what happens next. So I immediately started listening to the next one, tore through this one. And I have to say, this series is banging. It is firing on all cylinders. So much so, like I can't wait tomorrow to. I didn't want to I was tempted to start Sons of Valor 3,
I'm so excited we have one to jump into.
but I wanted to wait and wanted to do this pod, think about this, talk about this before we dive into that. And I didn't drive in today because we had a snow day, so I didn't
Right, right.
had no time to listen on the commute. But anyways, yeah, I think we have a lot to dig into. The story is complex. It's kind of like at times I felt like we were like I was lost a little bit. Maybe that's why I think I'm not going to give it that perfect 50. But when we're clicking with the action, we're clicking, man.
Mm-hmm.
And the one thing I did love was the beginning, like the continuing the development of Kasim as this villain,
Yes.
like seeing his life, his interactions with Deba. Did you, when you first read it, did you pick up on that Korean lady at Nando's? Like, did she seem like a little funny to you?
Yeah.
And then
Something was
boom,
off.
she's a spy, like essentially, right? Or and
Yeah.
she's working for
She's
MI5.
MI5. Yeah. She's working Diva.
Yeah, so like that whole dynamic and this, the best part of this story reminds me of, like the subterfuge, the spycraft from like a Damascus Station, or like I think back to some of my favorite movies like Homeland or television series like Homeland, The
For sure.
Americans,
For sure.
stuff like that. It's doing the work. It's like that. And the action's on point. Andrews and Wilson are phenomenal.
Yep.
And then the sniper scenes, like you can't like this book is amazing. Like one of the top tier sniper books. Like
Definitely.
I'm trying to think, like it comes close to like what was the sniper book we read in
The Jack Carr series.
For the Jack Carr?
Be-
Yeah.
well, I have to say, I think this book, in terms of a sniper versus sniper, is everything I wanted and hoped
In the blood,
that
right?
book would be. Right. In
Mm,
the Blood. I forget who that character's name was, but I feel like I wanted that to be as good as Juba was here.
right. No,
And
Juba was more scary.
yeah, and when I read the Jack Carr book, knowing it was going to be a sniper versus sniper book, I was almost let down only because I must have just recently come off of this one and the final
Mm,
scene. I mean, come on, whether it's in the rafters at the convention center in Dubai or he's on the rooftops, like sliding off the shingles as he's trying to get cover and get an angle in a suburban neighborhood. Between those two scenes, which are very backloaded, it's one of those books that I don't think really gets going or gets your attention until I would say the halfway mark, but even
right.
later, maybe like the 3/4 mark. And for that reason and that reason only, I don't think I'm going to uphold my 50 out of 50 score. But I will say, I hope you, Chris, and others can understand with the ending of this book why my snap reaction was to jump
Mm,
to that 50 out of 50. And I'll be honest, we never did a scorecard at that point on Sons of Valor 1. So in my mind, by jumping to the scorecard, and I had read them one after the other like you, I essentially was giving that 50 out of 50 to the series, to the
Right.
first two books combined. And dude, if you put these two books together and you make one massive story, because that's essentially what it is,
Yeah.
that might be a 50 out of 50.
It's very good. And we got to see how the trilogy ends. Like,
We got to see it.
but we could just have the conversation now. Do you think this book is better than Sons of Valor 1?
Okay, so I have one way where it's better, one way where it's probably about the equivalent, and one way it's slightly worse. So overall, I haven't made my mind up yet, but I will say there are some things I like better, some things I thought were about the same, and some things I liked worse. Do you want me to run through those, or
Yeah, go ahead.
You can respond?
Let's kick it off. Yeah.
Okay. The one way, unfortunately, that it's worse is the team, because I think just the bonding of first meeting Chunk, Saw, Riker, Heels, Yi, even just them clowning around with one another was like just fascinating. I loved every minute of those kinds of scenes. We just don't have as much time doing that here, or when it's happening, it's a little more forced. Like some of the jokes land, but when they're ribbing each other, like, was it the first book or this book that had the Anchorman stuff?
That was the first book.
It was the first book where they set it up, and then I think they referenced it here.
They reference it where he like begins
quoting.
to like pretty much quote the like an entire scene from Anchorman. I think that's like to kick off the novel. Yeah,
I think so. And then at one time he's like, "Watts, you want to come in here and watch Wedding Crashers with us or something?"
Yeah.
So just some of those moments, I loved how they were set up last book, and here it was just like, okay, it's humming along, same things happening. It just felt like it didn't offer anything new, and we had already been through that and had so much fun meeting the guys and the team bonding, which, I mean, maybe you don't need to do here. So I'm not saying that's a negative, but I just don't think it lived up to what it did in the first book. Same thing with Qasim Nadar. I think his recruitment was incredible in the first book. I almost think, actually, I think that was my winner, right, of watching the transition of Qasim. And I'm going to say I liked it nearly as much here, because here's how I thought of it. If the first book was his recruitment and what could make somebody sympathetic to the cause of a network like Al-Qadar, and the family bonds you had to have, how Ishan had to, as a best friend, and his sister and his father had to blow up. How do you bring someone like that into the fold of a terrorist network and make them think, am I a terrorist now? And have to grapple with that. This book is him going through the initiation. What does it actually look like to be in that role? And I thought the spice shop and the way he had to bust in with the hackers and flip the one dude's chair showed that next stage of the evolution. So I think that was done almost just as well as the first book, but in a different way. It was a new evolution he had to grow in through. He's already been recruited, and he had to get over that hump. And when you start the book with him questioning if he's going to be loyal to Diba or loyal to Asadi Bijan, the new name for Hamza, and at the end of the book, he writes her the note and says, "You're going to do exactly what I say. You know, I'm basically taking on this role," and he's confirming that. It shows that that transition was complete, which makes me think the third book is now going to be him as a leader, as the head of Al-Qadar, and really stepping into the role. So it's like the recruitment, book one, his initiation, growing into the role, book two, and now book three. I think he's going to be ripping as the head terrorist and undercover at the same time. And then they have to flee. So I think all that was done almost just as well as the first book.
I agree with that.
And the part that's done even better is the action. Like, we started this book, almost wash it, rinse and repeat. Let's hit some caves, or let's hit something in the mountains. And it was really cool. And just like the first book, we're on the comms and we're setting up a perimeter and we're infilling and exfilling. And I thought like some really cool scenes early on doing that. But once you hit that scene in Dubai, from the nightclub to the convention center, and then in some ways all the way to Tampa and Saw's house, some of the best action writing, and maybe the best single sequence of action writing I've read since Memorial Day. And I might even put it up there with Memorial Day. The only negative about this scene, I can't think of a single critique except Mitch Rapp isn't in it. If it was a Mitch Rapp scene, it would be perfect. There's nothing better. It's the most amazing thing ever. So I can't even critique it for anything. The only reason I won't say it's better than the Memorial Day ending is because the nostalgia. It's Vince Flynn. It's Mitch Rapp. It was like my origins in this genre. But since I can't recreate that, this is the absolute closest and best you can come to an action scene in a thriller book.
Yeah, and I like even some like the smaller action scenes that we get, like when they get the first of the three snipers in that attack in the village in Iraq, right?
Mm.
Like that scene is suspenseful, intense. Even the first action of Juba when he kills the Navy SEAL that like sparks this whole like side mission that Chunk and Co have to go on. Like that's great. Yeah, I would agree with you that the action is better. And I'm also going to agree with you in terms of like this. I felt a little bit disconnect with the team, and I don't know if like that's just and Chunk like the character of Chunk seemed like a little bit weird to me. Like he was doing
Mm-hmm.
like I don't know. Maybe they're just trying out this new character arc with him, especially at the end. Some of the writing and some of the ways that Ray Porter said it, like his final interaction with Heels when they come back, like he's dealing with like this trauma. I guess they're trying to. I don't know. It was strange to me because he's
Yeah.
supposed to be this, leader, operator, but I guess everyone does go through those. They can't be on 100% of the time. Yeah, and I think like where this book shines is, we saw Kasim being recruited. Now we're seeing his ascension to
Yep.
the leadership. He wants
Embracing it.
embracing it. He wants a bigger role, playing this double life with both his wife, with the British public, with the like whatever. Coming out of that attack as a hero, they say
Yeah.
he's been elevated as a hero.
Yeah.
He got a promotion at British Aero, and meanwhile he's now ascended to being the head of a terrorist organization.
And he tricked Chunk. He tricked Watts also in that interrogation.
Yeah, but I think Watts ultimately is suspicious. Like I don't think she. I think she in the she obviously tricked him enough that she would let him go, but I think she has some reservations about it.
Yeah.
She has that like third sense going on.
But he put on a good performance that I think
Mhm.
delayed that. He really
Yes.
delayed her drawing those conclusions.
Yes.
It took her rationalizing why Hamza was in the club to really think Qasim Nadar was a suspect, right? She's
Right.
like, if we were going after Qasim Nadar and Hamza showed up there, it's too big a coincidence
Right.
that the two of them would have just randomly been at the same club at the same time while we're tracking this attack.
They have to
So
be related. Yeah.
that was what really sparked it. I don't think anything in the interrogation actually made
Actually
her
sparked
question
it.
him.
Okay.
Like I
Yeah,
think
no,
in
maybe,
that moment he won.
yeah, and speaking of that Dubai scene in the club is
Yeah.
one of the best parts of this book. It's freaking amazing. Like just the whole lead up to it, like that aspect of the team, like meeting that newer SEAL who helps Chunk get dressed, like that stuff was good. But I wanted like more of that.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
felt
Yeah.
like we got more of that in the first book.
Yeah. Although there's something about the Dubai scene I really want to ask you because before you read this scene, you and I had talked about this briefly, and it comes up at the end of my limerick. So at the end of my limerick, I got a question for you, and I think we have to get into this for a few minutes.
Sure.
When there is violence of action, the Al Qadar network will fraction. Saws God in the sky, a shootout in Dubai, Chunk and heels, you dig the attraction?
Yeah. So I think any story like this has to play. It's like season two. They got to play up obviously the two leads, hot, attractive. They're going to be played up as romantically. But I feel like maybe Chunk has some reservations, but I don't know. We're not in the head of heels really, so I don't know if she is any sort of reciprocation, but reciprocation, any sort of if she also feels the same way. You know what I mean? Like I don't
Yeah.
know.
Because you and I had said I really, really hope there's nothing between them and we don't just take this turn and all of a sudden they start developing feelings or they
Hmm.
sleep with each other. We're like, we kind of want to break that stereotype of the main character has to get with the main female character.
Yeah,
Bada bing, bada boom. Brad Thor does what he does. Blah, 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 blah. But I like that it was mentioned because I don't think you just straight ignore it. I think that would be disingenuous,
exactly.
particularly if they both look so damn good, right? Like,
Hmm.
if she's stunning in this thing, you gotta at least get inside his head of like, is this a thing? Like, and he sees her tattoos he wouldn't have otherwise seen. So I think it's a way to build intimacy without being intimate,
Intimate. Yeah, no,
right?
I
Like,
agree with that.
and I think they're gonna need that level of intimacy to grow even closer, but it won't necessarily need to be a relationship or a sexual relationship. I just think it's, as close as he can get with the guys, they bunk together, they shower together, whatever, like he can get that close with her without it being more than a professional teamwork thing.
Sure,
You
sure.
know, now all this could backfire in the third book and
Hmm.
something could happen. I don't know. But to me, it feels like if you didn't mention the tingles, right? Like you're doing this club op and it's not like you're gonna have a side of you that's like, wow, she looks really good. And like, do I say something about that? Do I bring it up to her? I have to bring it up to her. If that's not in your mind, then you're probably just like ignoring something. And so they
Sure.
call it out. But I'm glad there's then that scene at the end where they both talk about why they do what they do without like, oh, and then all of a sudden they start making out.
Yeah, yeah, exactly, exactly. Well, and I think they're both in like this interesting spot at the end of the book. We leave our two protagonists with one, embracing this idea of like, oh shit, like I need to take this operator stuff seriously. Chunk is right. I should be on my game because you never know what's going to happen. When she sees that Saw's family was targeted, she
Mm,
realizes that she could be targeted at any point. And then Chunk kind of has the same interaction where, he has that whole conversation with, I feel like he has a little bit of guilt because he's the one who tells Saw, I need you, like you can't
yeah.
leave. And
Yeah.
essentially like if he hadn't convinced him to come on to the tier one, then, I mean, obviously they save his family, but his family would have never been in that situation if it wasn't for him. So
Yeah. Yeah.
they both have these like we from the same experience have diverting feelings of like how to move forward with this.
Yeah.
It's very interesting how we leave our main characters and then like finishing with our third main character. I guess like I think that there's like three main characters, right? There's Kasim, there's Chunk, and there's Heels. And then like so we finish with Kasim and like that whole interaction where he's writing down and then like because he's obviously being listened to and essentially, we get the full like I am in charge now. Like they just send
Yep.
chills down my spine. This book is very much so like The Empire Strikes Back. Like
Mm,
it's very like they're following this like typical
so true.
formula for a trilogy for like a perfect trilogy.
Yeah, we really need to get to the Return of the Jedi now. You're right about that. That's a great point. That's a great point. And that end scene when he's writing on the paper, part of me, both times I read it, even this time, part of me was like, is he going to write down, Deba, pack everything, let's get out of here. I'm giving up this life,
Hmm.
And this small part of me wanted him to choose that path because even as radicalized as we saw him become, and there was a really cool, I forget where he was, but it was a whole chapter of just him deciding and almost raging to take over Al Qadar. He's thinking about the video of Ishan, and he's like the operator who shot him. He's thinking about Hamza and his dead body lying in an alley in Dubai after getting chased by the Americans. He's thinking about the drone strike, and he like commits to himself. I am going to rise. I think that's what the language was, right? He's
Right.
like, I can run away or I can rise as the leader. And he commits to himself in that moment to rise. Yet, when he takes out that slip of paper, something in me was rooting for him to not rise and to run.
Mm.
And the fact that the writing could have him have his own rage moment in where he's flipping chairs, right, in Fun Time's office, and he's going nuts, and he wants everyone to respect him. But then when he gets home and sees Deba, I'm like, if he only hears about the pregnancy, will he run away with her
I
and
know.
change everything? Will that happen? Will she tell him? Will he know? And he doesn't. He doubles down. And I'm like, oh my God, the fact that he still maybe could have made that choice even up to the very end shows that you wrote a great character.
No, yeah, and then like you're wanting her to just say it, like
Mm-hmm.
say it, so that way he
Mm-hmm.
knows. And then, but she's already committed that she's not going to say it, and she's actually probably going to run away, like to get away from him, right?
Right,
Like she's
right.
like settles in her mind, and it's all these things that like are everyone's going to go down this path that you don't want them to go down when there's an easier solution for everybody. And I want to bring this question, like I feel like even though obviously they were able to kill all three of the snipers, Hamza kills himself. I feel like they didn't quite win in this book. Like, sure they stopped, they got the terrorists, but a lot of lives were lost. Like
Right.
they there was that hit on the Navy SEALs. They
Yeah.
lost. You lost one Navy SEAL, plus another one was severely injured. Countless dead at the convention in Dubai,
Yep.
including like all these civilians.
And Tampa.
And then in Tampa, they were there, ready for it, and
Yep.
they still weren't able to like fully stop it.
Yep. They were behind
So
the eight
like
ball the whole time.
exactly, it's they lost this book. Like I feel like this is in the first book they won. Like they were
Right.
on top of everything. They were ahead of everybody.
Although one of the missiles did strike.
Yes, yeah. I mean, I guess like you have to have everyone can't come away like
Walk
fully
away happy.
unscathed.
Yeah.
But I feel like they won. They more so won in the first book than like the tally. Like the terrorists have more,
More kills. Yeah.
more kills in this book than the first one.
I think the stakes were higher. Well, I think maybe the stakes were higher in that actual US intelligence was going to be crippled in the first book, like our drone operations. Like the stakes were higher in terms of our operation in the Middle East, but the equation changes, not even the body count equation, right? But the equation changes of what a win is when it's on the home front, right? Because
Right,
everything the
right,
terrorists are doing shifts from the Middle East to the West. And let's even count Dubai as the West, right? Because all of the contractors there were foreigners, were
right.
civilians for security companies, contracting companies. So I think the threat and the stakes were way higher in this book in terms of protecting the home front. And you even add something in this book with the psyops. They kind of get into AI. They talk about, well, by the way, that's a shout out to Tier 1 is the Ember team and Ian
Right.
Baldwin.
Yeah, there were a lot of crossover with this book.
I think this book definitely showed we want this to be that shared universe. I remember you mentioned that
Hmm.
last pod. This book definitely reinforced that, the way you bring in the skills of the Ember team, and Watts really relies on that here. I think the stakes are raised because of that. And think about how much more realistic it is to the modern day, where the last book, the war and the drone strikes in the Middle East, you could say that's a little outdated now. Now it's a digital war. It's scaring people by what they did with the SEALs' families, right? Like
Right.
who's manipulating people posting these pages in order to elicit information about who the operators' families are. How many people click like? How many people click the link? Who are they connected to? You could almost have terrorists collecting data on all of our military families simply by clicking a web page.
Hmm.
They made a profile on Ellie, right? Which
Yeah.
was amazing that the Ember team uncovered that and was able to tell Watts at the last minute, and she can divert the team from Tampa. But they did that just by making a Facebook page. Like, that's insane that they had a whole profile on Saw's family.
It wasn't even like originally they were like what they were asking the question, why do that? Why not just like get online and brag about what you did? But instead,
Mm-hmm.
by doing this, you're causing like Chunk to second guess and to get scared. Like they say, what else is a sniper for than to elicit fear or terror in someone?
That's textbook Hamza.
Yeah.
Textbook.
Yeah. Hamza's a good villain.
Oh,
And
Hamza's a
now
great
like
villain.
let's see how well Kasim can rise to fill his void. Like, what did you think of his death?
I think he's gonna. That's what makes book 3 really intriguing, right? Because part of these stories have to be, and especially if you're going with the Star Wars analogy, right? It's going to be the mentor taking over the mentee taking over the mentor, and growing into those shoes. But I think Kasim Nadar is really going to have to grapple with. He's not as good as Hamza.
No, no.
He's not even as good as Ishan. And what is that going to mean for his leadership? He's probably just going to have to double down on the violence and the threats. But that is not at all Hamza's play and what Al Qadar should be known for. So I think he's going to struggle with that big time.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see. Like, I could see him going full, like, which is crazy to think that he,
Nuke mode.
yeah, like, to go from where he was in the first book to like potentially like seeing where he's going to be, like the guy who got scared or got upset that Hamza like sliced that dude's throat out of, like for no reason, like
Mm-hmm.
to then probably like I wouldn't be surprised if there's a scene where he slits some dude's throat.
Over
You
and
see
over.
it,
Yeah.
you see it become like
Just
full
a
circle, like
bloodbath.
tight. Yeah, exactly.
Totally.
So
Red Wedding.
yeah,
Game of Thrones. Sons of Valor. Game of Thrones meets Star Wars.
there you go. There you go.
I'm sure that's what Andrews and Wilson were going for,
Oh yeah. We can ask him. So what do you say? You wanna get into the scorecard?
Yeah, let's jump into it. And I think I really need the scorecard to be able to answer your initial question. Did I like this book more than Sons of Valor 1? You know what the answer is going to be. In some ways, yes. In
Yeah, in
some
some
ways,
ways,
no.
you're gonna what's that called? The flippy floppy. Yeah.
But dude, it's so true though. I'm like just thinking. I'm like, I could definitely say this book is better. In some ways, I could definitely say Sons of Valor is better. In other ways, anyway, let's scorecard it.
I'm gonna say I think I like this book better.
Really? Okay. Initially, that's what I would have said too. That would have been my first thought.
And I don't know if it's just because book one did all the work to
Exactly.
allow me to make like this book better,
Exactly.
because like book one had to set everything up. I don't know. So there was the one thing in book one we were kind of like, you know, convenience with the plot. She's able to like immediately detect everything. There was a little bit of that here
A little bit.
with, I guess Chunk is the one who, when they go to interrogate the fake Hamza, right?
Mm,
He's the one who picks up on
that was good.
that he said something in Dari, but Hamza's wouldn't have said that
Yeah,
because
that was
Hamza's
good.
not Afghani. Like that was actually pretty good. But then, what did you think about the whole? She's able to get one of the operators to draw like a graphic novel
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
then gets put into like she sends that to Ember, and Ember's able to then figure out that that's Ishan, and that's
With
how
the
they piece
deep
everything
fake technology.
together. Yeah.
Yeah, I thought I bought into that, and it almost undoes what maybe we could have called the Whitney Watts problem in the first one of she had all these hunches and her intuition was right every time. She's relying on the tech guys of Baldwin's
Hmm.
team. She's relying on the MI5 lady who's recruiting Deba or working Deba. She's even relying on some of the other guys on the team, the way he has to draw the sketch for her. I kind of almost think she's grown into being a bit more of a team player here, leaning on those people to help her untie the knot. So, yeah, I thought that was better done than just let's happen to have coincidences
Right.
just to show she was right. And
Yeah, and then go ahead.
no, I was going to say Chunk has that intuition too a few times, but it's more of that what I could believe, which is that operator's sense of something's off. I don't have the answer. That's what I need my intel folks for. That's why I need Watts, but something's off. There were like 3 or 4 times in the moment where he just had that intuition of something's going on here and he presses a little bit deeper. But in the interrogation, he lined that thing up. He knew exactly what he was doing going into that interrogation.
Well, the opening scene, right? They go to I forget where they are, but they're somewhere about to hit this house, and then there's a sniper, there's multiple snipers, right?
Right, in
That they
that
have
false
to
attic.
in that false. No. That's later on. Remember, because then he has Chunk or he has a Saw with another operator go up and like they take out the sniper.
Oh, right. Yes, yes,
This is the
yes.
very beginning. Yeah.
Yeah, right. I forgot we opened with that.
Yeah.
It's unfortunate the ending action is so good.
Yeah, I kind of forget about like everything in the beginning, right?
The earlier operations at the beginning fall by the wayside. And when I was reading them, I was like, I don't know if I'm into this just yet. Like this is great, but it's exactly what we did all book one.
Hmm.
It wasn't offering anything new up until the halfway point.
Right.
And that's when the book really got into some new territory that I was digging. So because of that, maybe book one is more complete. I think it's more of a complete story, where this one just relies on the race to the finish line being so damn good. I think book one, you're right, does all the work. So does that deserve more credit?
You're right. Like this, can this be a standalone book?
Yeah, that's tough. I
That's
no, it
tough.
really
No,
can't.
it can't.
It really can't. But as far as second books go, it's off the charts good compared to how a book like Sons of Valor one that's so good must be impossible to sit down. And actually, I remember in my interview, Andrews and Wilson saying that, like, we really tried so hard in the last book. How do you top that? And
Hmm.
and I told them, I was like, I'm really impressed that in Sons of Valor 2 you did. And they even said, yeah, we are too. And like maybe we're just setting ourselves up now for failure in the third one, because how do we top this now, right? How do you top the Saw scene, the Dubai scene? So that they too were like shocked, and I think somewhat impressed that they were able to top book one. But without book one, right? You need it. It's the legs to stand on. I mean, let's just compare the opening, the wedding scene in book one versus that action scene in book two. Book one wins.
Right.
The wedding scene is just killer. Kasim and Hamza book one versus Kasim and Asan Bijadi here, book one.
Watts and you have like Watts and Chunk like riding around, like they go to Iraq to visit Fake Hamza and that's sort of hunting down this lion of Ramadi thing versus like them meeting the team and beginning to click
And the jogging and the
and the
barbecue.
jogging. Yeah.
There were some great things in book one. I think when I gave the perfect score on the scorecard, I really was just treating them as one book.
As one
Like
book.
I
Yeah.
think I was ranking the series Sons of Valor, and in that regard, I would go back and give it a 50 out of 50 any day. But I think if you parse the books apart, I think book one has the edge.
Yeah, because book one you don't need this book. I mean, obviously you have some like loose ends, but like if they never followed up with those things, then like book one
Yeah.
is very like, whereas this one, it's a lot of action with like very, I don't know. I'm
Well,
kind of like,
let's scorecard it.
yeah.
I think the scorecard is going to break this down. For example, action and plot. What do you say?
Purely because the second half action, I gotta go like a 9.5 or a 10.
Yeah, I'm going 9.5 though, just because the beginning action scenes were great. 9.5 is still incredible, but they didn't have that edge. The ending action
Mm,
scenes had that edge. So 9.5 for me. Compare that to the first book, it was a perfect 10.
yeah.
So that's something.
The plot here has got me hung up a little bit.
Mm.
It was cool. Like this whole like three snipers thing. There's three distinct like hunting down of the snipers. Like that whole plot is happening. And obviously there was some key scenes like the scenes in Dubai, and then like even like when Chunk like right after that they follow Hamza like out. Remember they track him and then he goes, and that's how they discover that, oh, like these caterers are going to be the ones like going in.
Don't forget the Deba storyline.
Diva storyline with the like bringing in the MI5 people.
Yeah.
I don't know, a 9.
Yeah, I got to go 9 as well. And as you were talking, I'm thinking, how does all that The Deba storyline, Hamza popping up at their house, which was really, really good when he gets home
Oh
and
yes,
he's
yeah, yeah,
singing and he's ready for a nice. And that's one of those moments of like, Kasim is going to go back to being old Kasim.
right.
And
Yeah,
who's
he
sitting in
said
his
he
living
feel. He
room
said
with
he.
his
What is
wife?
he? He's walks in. He's like, I feel like
Yep.
like he's going
Oh,
to say dancing.
yep. Hamza's like, oh, you felt like dancing, didn't you?
hmm
Yeah. So I love that stuff. The Lion of Ramadi was really cool. I thought everything about the sniper plot line was really great. Compare that to the drone plot line, right? It's like, did you like the drone stuff or the sniper stuff?
I think I like the sniper stuff better.
Yeah, but I really like the drone, like the missing Chinese drone, which they sold. Yeah, both really good. So I'm going 9 on plot.
Buy-in.
Buy-in. I think 4.5. Beside the first like third of the book, me wondering when are things really, really going to
hmm
get started. Besides that, I would never question anything. I'm reading this book, loving every minute of it.
Yeah, and I think things made more sense in this book. There wasn't as much like we said, like there wasn't as much like coincidence that had to like plot situations. Like everything kind of made sense and like going through the procedures of like going from here to here and doing these various ops. Like even like bringing in someone like the Ember team to facilitate information transfer or bringing or like she calls what the contact who the DIA guy from
Mm,
the first
Diebold,
book. He's the one who puts him in touch with the
MI5.
MI5
Yeah.
people, like, and then that's when she finds out that Kasim works for British Aero and is a drone pilot, like put everything together versus having her just have this hunch and think about it. Like I like that kind of aspect of it. So yeah, my buy-in for this is pretty high, and I think like book one again does the work to make the buy-in
Yep.
high.
Yep.
So
Yep. Bad guys. Like we said, if you
not
talk,
as good as book one.
no, that's the problem. If you take this as a 2-book series so far, it's 5 out of 5. But we get so much less of them here. Ishan's gone.
We
Hamza,
we barely see Hamza. He has the one scene where he
right.
pops up, and then we see him at the nightclub, and then we see him win the attack, and then he dies. Like that's it.
I think the less that we see of Hamza is not fully made up for
The more we see
by
Kasim.
the addition of Zane and Juba, the snipers.
Mm,
I think they're good, but they are not Ishan and Hamza good.
no, they were. Yeah, I agree. Like they were good, but we didn't have enough character development with them to like understand their ticks and understand like. I guess if like you knew who Juba was, like if you knew the whole backstory behind that, then if you're a military like historian, because that apparently wasn't a real person, or like myth,
A real threat. Yeah, myth.
multiple people.
Yeah. And they want to resurrect that in the modern war.
Right.
Cool idea,
So I
but
don't know. Is it
it's
like a
not a
three and a
5.
half? Is it a 4? I think
I
it's
th-
good. I think it's a 4 because I liked, even though Kasim is not fully there yet, we saw glimpses of the terror and like what
yep.
the rage
Yes.
that is going to bubble. I believe is going to bubble up in the next book.
His
So I think
transformation.
dock at a point. So
Yeah, I think his transformation definitely is why I'm sticking to a 4. I'll say another reason I don't want to go lower and possibly could go higher is the spice shop. Like, could you call them bad guys? I think so. This network outside this mosque in East London that has this back door where you have fun time and the hackers doing their thing. That whole dynamic being set up as a villainous kind of hideout, I thought was pretty cool. So yeah, I think I got to go 4. It's just not as well done as the first book.
yeah. Now what about the good guys?
Good guys. Some transformations here, some growth out of the characters. And in the end, kind of that weirdness we maybe felt with Chunk along the way, he recognizes. He says, like, as a leader, I would have known when I'm at the top of my game that Watts started shooting with Riker and how often she does it. I would have
Right,
been
right.
so intimately connected with their mission, their commitment, their routines. And as their team leader, I wasn't showing that. I would have known. I would have picked up on when Saw said, do you remember with Saw when he's like, hey, Chunk, I'm checking in on you. I know things must be hard on you. And Chunk knows he's talking about himself, right? Like,
Himself. Yeah, yeah.
that was a great conversation. But Chunk didn't take away from that conversation what he needed to. He knew Saw was talking about himself. He played it off kind of jovially. He went along with the game, but he didn't recognize that was Saw's attempt to open up, to reach out, to seek help. And Chunk in the end finally was able to say, I didn't get you what you need, man. I wasn't there for you. I didn't listen. And I think that was some really good growth. So I got to go 4.5. I'm not going to dock it any more than that.
Yeah. I mean, I think we're pretty much in agreement.
Setting. This is tough because if you're saying the suburban neighborhood in the shootout with Saw's family, dude, that's a 10 out of 5.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
If you're in Dubai, it's like a 6 out of 5. But if you're in a few of the opening scenes or Tajikistan, like that's where they were, right? I don't know if I bought into the new base in Tajikistan like I did Kandahar in the
Right.
drone operations of last book.
But they did like a decent job of describing like these three like the bunkhouses, the
Sure.
rooms and stuff like that. So I
That's
kind of
true.
like, and her back cave. I felt like but it could have been anywhere.
Right, right, right.
But describing the suburban, Tampa, the downtown area, the convention center, the descriptions in both convention centers.
Yup. The nightclub
Yeah, the nightclub was great. Even Deba and Kasim like traveling around,
in London.
In New Malden and London.
Yeah.
Like I felt maybe it's because I've been there. Like I know,
Yeah.
like that just and I've been to Nando's. Great peri
Cheeky
peri chicken.
Nando's. Cheeky Nando's.
Cheeky Nando's. Yeah, but it's not like amazing. So I'm gonna go 4.
You're gonna go 4. Okay.
Yeah.
I think I have to lean on 4.5 though. I gotta give it that extra point because right, it's not amazing, but I remember when I talked with the guys, I was so impressed that they took a suburban neighborhood, made me feel like, where any of us grew up really in our demographic. And all of a sudden you've got this family hiding out and this sniper perched in a window. Man, it could be any millions of streets and neighborhoods I know from my life, and the fact that they put this sniper versus sniper scene right there. Oh, and dude, I don't know if this would make you adjust anything if you go back. How incredible was it when they're racing to the house, just Chunk and Saw, and Chunk has to tell Saw, do what you do best. Go set up. That is the best odds to save your family. And he just wanted to charge into that house and save them. And Chunk had to tell him, let me do that, man, because I need you in the
I'm the
sky.
door kicker. You're God. Yeah.
You're God and I'm the door kicker. I need you up there. And Saw had to relent. And the way Ray Porter did Saw's voice in those moments, that
Perfect.
resignation, that acceptance that he could not be the father in that moment he thought he needed to be and bust in that door because he'd get sniped in the back and it would be game over. He had to accept that. And it was so hard for him to do so. And you could tell the way Ray Porter read that was class.
Yeah, and what's the line he says? Like if there is a sniper there, he's a dead man walking. Like
That's
and
right.
like Ray Porter kind of like grits his teeth and the way he says it. Dude, Ray Porter is money.
Yep. And that was Chunk, right? Rationalizing the decision of like, I'm not going to let Saw storm into that house because it's a tactical call. And
Mm.
this is an operation. I know
Yeah,
it's his
yeah, we're
family on
not,
the line, but we're going to
but
do
we're
exactly what we would do that's operationally sound. And after he made that decision, when he's on his own, he's like, if there is a sniper up there, it's game over for him.
yeah,
Like
yeah, yeah.
Saw's coming after you. When Saw's coming after you, doing what Saw does, you don't win.
No, exactly.
That was a cool line.
All right. What about the cover?
All right. We hashed this out last time. Any thoughts on this one? Because I know you weren't a big fan of the cover last time.
All right, all right. I don't love it, but I like it's got the Burj Khalifa in it.
Yes, it's better than the first. You got to
It's
admit
it's
that.
definitely it's definitely better than the
It's
first.
way better than the first.
They're going. I see what they're going for. You got, the operators. I'm guessing that's Chunk. Oh, these new night vision goggles that they describe,
Right.
where like essentially like it's night, but it looks like day. Like that. That
That's
was pretty
cool.
sick.
They always add the tech. That's why I'm okay with these covers because their whole game plan is like fully kitted out, top of the top line special op guys and equipment. And so I kind of like that these covers dig into that technical aspect of the equipment. These guys are about that life.
Yeah. I'm gonna. What did I give the last one?
3.5. You got to bump that up at least just a little.
All right, I'll give it a 3.75. No, I'm just
Oh, come
kidding.
on, bro.
I'll give it a four. I'll give it a
Don't do
four.
me
I'll
like
give it a
that.
four. I'll give it a four.
Don't do me like that.
I'll give it a
So
four.
so I gave the last one a 4. I have to say I think this one's doing a little better than the last one, and I like the fact that they created a theme. Right, there is a motif here of what a Sons of Valor cover is that clues you in or gets you tuned into thinking. There's explosions, there's choppers, there's fully kitted out operators, there's a
Mhm.
city skyline. I just think these covers scream Sons of Valor. Are they objectively some of the best designs? No. Are they my favorite cover? No.
But judging a cover by the book, yeah.
Judging a cover not only by the book but by the series, I
Mhm.
have to give them some props. So I'm
Okay.
going 4.5. One, because it's better than the last one, and I actually do just straight up kind of like it.
I will say I like this cover a lot better than the last one. So,
Good, 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 good.
all right, who's your winner?
Whew. I'm gonna take a page out of your playbook. Or do you want to go first? Let me
No,
let
no,
me
no, no,
let you go. No, no,
no.
no.
You go first.
No,
You go
you're
first.
going first because I got one and I'm really curious to see if I stole it from you.
Okay. Oh man, there's a lot I could go with. I really liked the Korean MI5 lady. Like she was
Okay.
pretty funny. I liked
Okay.
like her accent, the way like Ray Porter like talks about it, her interactions. But I could go there. But I'm gonna have to go like winner my book. Can I pick a scene? Like
Yeah,
a
for
I'm
sure.
gonna pick when Chunk is getting dressed for the operation in the club when he gets
The tight shirt and
he
the
well he
haircut.
first he gets a haircut and then he puts on this tight shirt and he wears his jeans with a vest and
Oh
like
yeah.
just like his interaction and like he needs a dip like it's so funny and then when Heels walks in and she's wearing like that tight dress like
Yeah.
that whole scene is just hilarious so that's my winner.
Dude, that's good. That's good. And I know we're looking for something different because obviously the winner is the race to the finish. I mean,
Sure.
the shootout in Saw's house and the Dubai op
Well,
when
that's
Saw's
obvious.
sniping. Besides the sniper stuff, right? Because that's so obvious. We can't say Saw sniping. Well, you know what? Let's in
We
general.
can. We
The
can.
winner is Saw, right? The winner
Yeah,
is
no,
Saw
definitely.
in
Definitely.
general. But like you, if I want to try to look for these little moments, I can't believe you didn't say this. The maintenance man up in the rafters in
Oh,
Dubai, dude.
he's like what's the guy from Transfer of Power?
Exactly.
Yeah,
Milt Adams.
Milt Adams. Yeah.
Or the guy at the Thomas Jefferson
Mm-hmm.
Monticello house,
Mm-hmm.
with the clocks.
The docent.
The
Yeah.
docent, exactly. You always need those little, an everyman who's got some quirks, who comes through in a clutch moment and does something heroic. Let's honestly, when Saw is walking him through, how to explain the rafters to me. Where's the ladder? Is there enough room to go prone? Would I be standing? How many men can you fit there? Which way would I have to point the rifle if it's going to go, out the between the rafters? And
Yeah,
then
he
when he tells
helps.
them about the lights, when to
Right.
kill the lights, where to put the spotlight, that dude is heroic in that moment.
He helps Saul out a lot, right? Because Saul's immediately going to go on the catwalk, and the guy's like, "Yeah, no, I wouldn't do that because the
Hmm.
the sniper's going to like hear you. You're like going to feel you because they're all connected." you'd be
Yep.
better off going to this
Yep.
place.
That dude's a hero.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's a good one. That's a good one, Mike.
Yeah. But besides that, the winner is Saw.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Just this is his book to shine, and I loved every minute of it.
All right. So what's our totals? We
What's
got
the total?
minus half, 1.5, 2, 44.5 for me, and 45.5 for you. Nah, not quite that 50.
You had to rub that in, didn't you? We'll solve the wounds. Well, Chris,
And definitely, I think it proves in the pudding. Like book one, we thought book one was better.
I think in the end, after we talked it through, book one is a better book. I think I will say again, though, parts of this one, particularly the end, definitely I think are some of the best I've ever read in the thriller verse. But book one is the complete package.
Mm-hmm.
It really is. On the scorecard, it's the complete package.
This is a solid book, though. Solid book two.
Yes.
And when taken together, I think like you combine the scores and it just like elevates it even farther. So hopefully three can complete the trilogy.
Right.
You know, hopefully we don't just consistently keep going down and down. So maybe three is better than two.
Yeah, I'm putting a lot of weight into this third book because there's the possibility of completing a near perfect thriller series with the 1, 2, and 3 knockout punch. Really excited to get into that. Chris, I'm going to make you a promise, though. I will not have any more solo podcast where I get in front of this mic and I just am a prisoner of the moment, giving out scores. I need you to walk me back, take me down a notch, keep me in check from this point forward.
Just going all willy nilly. You text me, you're like, dude, I gave a book a 50. I'm like, what? What book? We didn't even read it. We didn't even talk about it.
I published that before you could even respond.
Yeah, where I could even like tell you not to do that. No, Mike, don't do that.
Dude, I may have walked it back, but if you put books 1 and 2 together,
yeah,
I'm sticking with the 50 out of 50. I really am.
We can rate the series at the end of this trilogy too,
Yeah,
like
exactly.
as a whole.
Exactly. So. Perfect.
All right. So next time we'll be bringing you Sons of Valor 3. What's the tagline for Sons of Valor 3?
Good question. What is the tagline?
Oh, we didn't really talk about violence of action. He was in the limerick, but
it was a good title.
War Machine.
Ooh.
Sons of Valor 3. War Machine.
Dude, there was so much here about the military industrial complex that War Machine just kind of evokes the fallout of that. Like that sector, right? That sector was really attacked by the terrorists.
Right.
But now we have a war machine. Is it ours? Is it theirs? Is it our team?
Ooh,
did Chunk create a war machine?
Oh, all right. We'll talk about this next week. The cover is interesting.
Oh, yeah.
Very interesting.
Oh, snap. Dude, I'm so excited we're going to get to both react to a book neither of us have read yet. But yeah, something very interesting on that cover.
Yeah.
Couple of things. You see how the covers have created a voice? That's why I'm okay with them.
I think this might be my favorite of the three.
I think so, but that's going to depend on the book.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. The covers are not a great design, but they work so well for the series.
Yeah. I'll agree with you. All right, we need to thank our patrons, our special operator Sherry F, our special agents Daryl, Kevin, George, Matt, Don, Dennis, Peggy, Catherine, Ray, Bridget, Jeff, and Mark. Please subscribe, rate, and review using your favorite podcasting platform. You can find us at thrillerpod.com or on Twitter and Instagram at thrillerpodcast. And as always, just let heels be heels.
Just let Saw be Saw.
There you go. Just let Saw be Saw. This is a Saw book. Just let Saw be Saw.